All right, we are live. Welcome back to Dominating Your Investments. Dom Rinaldi here. Got my sidekick, Kris Patel. We're going to try to do this again for the second time for a live stream. Hopefully, fingers crossed, no video or audio issues. So we'll see what we got here. Good evening, Kris. I wanted to start just talking about some different stocks, and we all know that growth has just gotten crushed the last couple weeks, and we titled this as dominating bag holders, right? To what it means to be a bag holder and a long-term investor, and how do you do that successfully when all this volatility is happening and drama? And we kind of started hitting on it last night about making sure your thesis is still intact, right? Making sure that the company really hasn't changed. And I thought we could just start with one that we got a lot of questions about on the YouTube channel about Abcellera, which we're both shareholders and passionate about. It's trading now, I'm looking at it, $8.46. It is a profitable company. I'm sorry, $8.64. It keeps fluctuating. So it's a profitable company, but it has taken a huge hit, right? So when we made the videos and interview about a couple months ago, it was trading around $13, $14. And now we're down to $8.64. And when it actually had the first approval on their first monoclonal drug for COVID, it was all the way up at $46, right? So we're from 46 to 864. So maybe you can just shed some light on your thesis on it, but also why it's dropped and why you're not too worried.
So I think you have to start off by, when did they go public? They went public around the time where COVID was starting to become, well, it had already ravaged through the country and everything. And they were one of the first companies to develop a monoclonal that was effective against the original variant of COVID. So a lot of people had high expectations for it. But what a lot of people missed, especially that are missing now, is that it's not a COVID stock. And if you look at a lot of companies that have primarily really done really well because of COVID, they've all gotten beat up, right? The thing is, they understood, and with Peter Thiel being on the board, that if we're going to have a revolutionary company, right, which is still very early in its development cycle, they should go public when the market is really hot for it, right? So when they went public, everyone was interested in COVID stocks. They were able to generate a ton of buzz around it. And it's a kind of the same thing that he kind of did during the PayPal years, right? Where early on, they understood that PayPal was going to be something big, but at the same time, they're like, okay, we need to get as much money as we can done, right? So this way, we have a giant war chest that we can use to kind of build our business in the future. Right now, outside of the couple of COVID products that Abcellera has, like partnerships with Eli Lilly, they don't have very much. They've got partnerships with a ton of companies that they're doing research on, but those are still very early in their development cycle. Now, that doesn't mean that Abcellera is worthless. It just means that the value is going to be presented at a much longer time frame than people were originally assuming. A lot of analysts, when they came on and they were evaluating Abcellera for what the worth could be, they took into account a lot of revenues that were going to be present for because of COVID. And I think one of the things that I think a lot of people underestimated was just how fast we would recover from COVID in terms of developing other drugs that can help combat it. So an example is, and this is where I think Abcellera had that inflection point where they started to really go down. And that was when Pfizer and Merck started talking about oral antiviral pills to kind of combat COVID. And we kind of know what happened. Merck, their drug is really murky. There's a whole bunch of side effects around it, and it's only 30% effective. So, originally I remember when Abcellera kind of took a hit and Merck just shot up, it was like, oh, we found a pill that can help with COVID. And it was like, okay, but what's the side effects? What are some of the other things around it? And it's and then later on, they actually came back and said, well, you know what, it's not as effective as we originally thought. It's only 30% effective. And by that time, Pfizer had come up with another pill, and that one is actually effective. And it works. And it's got a decently high effective rate. The problem with the Pfizer one is that it does interfere on how replication happens. But so if you're on other medications, actually Paxlovid, which is what Pfizer has, may not be what's suitable for you. So I think what it is there's still challenges around using it everywhere, but essentially it is effective. So at this point, who would have guessed that now Omicron comes around? So in December, we started to see Omicron become, like the biggest thing ever. So now bamlanivimab, which was their original product, was not effective against it. So that's
Still
where it's like
that you can actually say that properly. I just call it BAM-V because
yeah,
to say.
it's been a lot of practice. So so what was good is that last year they actually had another drug that they were working on, which was actually effective against a lot of other types of variants, and it's actually effective against the Omicron variant, which right now
the 1404 testing.
Yeah, 1404. They Eli Lilly, I think last month, kind of came out and said, yeah, we're doing an EUA for it, so an emergency use authorization that's probably going to be sped along. It's a monoclonal, but the big difference between this one versus the old monoclonals, especially the ones from Regeneron and the old bamlanivimab, that was very very highly utilized, is that it doesn't require like a huge a huge infusion, right? So right now you need to get an IV in you. You need like 30 minutes to an hour of infusion.
It's not ideal, right? Like no one wants to go and get an IV and deal with that. They just want to take the medicine and move on.
Right.
Let me ask you this. Would you label this as a COVID stock, or are they much more than this when you look at this company?
I think in the short term, they're a COVID stock because they're generating all of their revenue 95% of their revenue from COVID, right? Which is their partnership with Eli Lilly selling BAM. That's where they're still generating majority of their revenue. Bebtilvanab, which is 1404, hopefully is due any day now. Once that emergency use authorization comes in, we should start to see another year of nice revenues come from that also. So that'll kind of like help push the price, and I think put a good floor under Abcellera for now. But I think the growth, especially the inflection growth, we're probably gonna have to wait until maybe 2024, maybe 2025 to really see all those other drugs that they have in the pipeline start to kind of show up. And you'll see them, they'll be in clinical trials and they'll be in all sorts of different phases. But you have to remember, Abcellera is building itself up to be a huge company, not today, not tomorrow, but in the future, right?
Yeah.
They came public at a time where it was the most beneficial for them so that they could raise capital. And that's what you need. Businesses need to raise capital so that they can build upon it, right? So that's why they went public. And I think right now, a lot of the analysts, they had really high expectations for it. They gave them really, really like high up their price targets. And they haven't changed, which kind of surprises me. Like I would have thought at least some of them would have come out and said, you know what, we originally thought that this company was going to be at $55, but now we're thinking that it's going to be like 20. Not a single one of them has lowered their guidance. They're all like, yeah, we still believe in it.
I just pulled up tip ranks and it's a little lower, but not by much, to your point. Yeah. So it looks like the highest price target, which we were used to seeing this in the 40s, is $48. The average price target is $33, and the lowest is $25. But when you look at that compared to, say, a similar company, which I also hold shares in, Sema4, that's got obliterated, analysts have kept their target, like you said, very high, and they like the business model, right? This is essentially a software company in essence, because what their software is doing is helping drug companies distinguish these specific antibodies to create drugs and reduce the failure rate. You talk about the lumpiness of the revenues, right? And how kind of 2025 it's a long-term vision. We're going to see this expand. Can you share with our audience, just with investing in biotech, or I won't say biotech's a wide word, right? A wide description.
Mm-hmm.
We'll say investing in companies like Abcellera, what do you have to be prepared for with their kind of revenues and how that works? Because it's not consistent. It's not something that constantly keeps reoccurring until you get a couple of those drugs to market.
Yeah, I think for the most part, if anyone invests in pharmaceuticals, you guys know it's a feast and a famine, right? If you have a good drug and it goes through approvals and it gets to market, it can really 10x a company overnight. And the exact opposite can happen, where you kind of can lose your entire investment overnight as well because of failures in the drug. I think the key differentiator and the reason why I like Abcellera is that, like you said, it's a technology company, right?
Yeah,
In that, and so it's a software / technology company in that they provide services to other pharmaceutical companies who have a base idea of what they want, and they want to partner and do the research, where Abcellera does a lot of the research, because Abcellera was founded by a bunch of professors. They have done drug discovery and they do research, and they figured, well, you know what, now with AI, ML, and a lot of other things coming down, how can we integrate that into medicine? And how can we integrate that into drug discovery, which is the most important thing? And if you look at the CEO, dynamic CEO, knows what he's talking about, and now they're kind of working with a lot of pharmaceutical companies. Here's what I think. I think right now we're going to see some lumpiness, primarily because of COVID. A lot of the revenues that are going to be coming to Abcellera, the reason they're coming is because of how COVID is. I don't know. Maybe next month we get another variant that's affect.
Let's hope not.
Let's hope not. Let's hope not. But let's say there happens to come up one, right? And Abcellera has the only drug that's that's effective against it. Overnight, the stock will shoot up to like 200, right? So what I think is going to happen is, in the short term, I think people are going to have to just temper the expectations, just constantly DCA in.
Yeah.
After 2025, what's going to happen is, once you start getting multiple revenue sources from multiple companies sharing their revenue with you, that's when you're going to see, like, when you have one customer giving you 25 million a year, your revenue could be lumpy, because if sales don't materialize, you kind of, you don't get that revenue. When you have 5 and you're getting, let's say, 25, 25, 25, right? That means that now, even if, let's say, one quarter this company didn't work out, you're still at 100 million. If you have 100 companies that you're partnership and you have 100 different drugs and they're each paying 25 million, that's 2.5 billion. And out of those, maybe some don't work out. But what ends up happening is, the more you scale up, the more consistent your revenue becomes and the less lumpy it becomes. And that's the key that I think a lot of people want to get into the pharmaceutical space. And that's what a lot of ETFs do, that, where they'll buy a lot of research, a lot of companies that are very early in their development cycle, and they'll buy an ETF because that's the least riskiest way to play biotech, research biotech, because if one or two go bankrupt, it won't bring the entire sector down.
Yeah. So let's jump into their presentation. Fingers crossed this doesn't crash the live stream here.
Mm-hmm.
But there is some. Let me pull this up here and share my screen. We'll see if I can do it. We might not be able to, but we'll see with this free version of. Can you see my screen yet?
No, I can't.
No. Okay. Let's see if we can get this pulled up. If not, no worries.
Yeah.
Tell you what, we'll prepare for next time to have that, but I'll read off what the partnerships are. So we already talked about Eli Lilly. They got Glasgow, Klein, GSK, very popular. Also, too, they have investments from DARPA, right? Just that that really jumped out at me because Palantir had investments from DARPA, right? DARPA is the defense.
I don't know if Palantir had investments from DARPA. They've had partnership with the CIA.
No,
DARPA
they actually did. They
Really?
actually, yeah. So if you look at the way back beginning history, DARPA also invested in them,
Mhm.
and so that's an organization that always invests in the most innovative technologies,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
Uh, for our government, for our protection. So that always can give you a little bit of confidence. But you look at here, Merck, you look at Pfizer, you look at Novartis, Denali, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, Regeneron. They've, like you said earlier, they struck up a partnership with Moderna, and so they have the partnerships. I think what the other part that you hit on that's so unique is their their different revenue streams and how they capture revenue. Do you want to talk about some of the different ways that they actually recognize revenue? Because it's not just
Yeah.
if they help a drug get discovered.
So the way that I would put this out is that it's almost like a sports agent, right? Where the sports agents, they get early in the lives of like an athlete, and you're not going to just rely on one athlete to kind of pay the bills. You're going to go after a whole bunch of athletes. You're going to talk to them. You're going to get them involved. You're going to be their manager. You're going to help them through the process. But what ends up happening is you get a small percentage of their total earnings, right? Now, here's the thing. The hardest part is that initial part to get that partnership done with that NBA player or football player or whoever. But then once they start making money, you start making money and you do really well because now you're not investing a whole bunch of other things into it. You're not building out infrastructure you're not buying the guy a house. You're not like buying him a car. Literally, you're just sharing in all the benefit. And I think that's the key right there that, you want to cast a really wide net. But what's important is, and the companies that you read out are big time companies. So if there was some technology gaps where, this was like vaporware or like a Theranos situation, you wouldn't see nearly the amount of adoption from the big pharmaceuticals that you've seen, right? And that's the thing. Someone would have called bullshit on it and said,
Yeah.
no, this is just some BS that they're talking about. Also, they have BAM. That was an effective product. So you can see that
Very
they're not
quickly.
just, yeah, very, very quickly within a very short period of time. So that they have an effective product and effective platform to do the research. And like I said, I think at this point, they're just working on getting as many players into their ecosystem as
Yeah.
possible. And they have what I think the total count the last time I saw was almost 155 different molecules that they're targeting right now
In the pipeline, yeah.
in
Yeah.
the
So they've
pipeline.
grown
Yeah,
that consistently quarter over quarter.
yeah,
And that's something that I'm tracking, and I'm sure you are too, as far as
yeah.
how do you measure this as a success when you have a company that's very lumpy in revenues? You can't see reoccurring revenues just straight over. And their pipeline has grown every single quarter. They said, measure us by that, right? Measure us by our growth and our also our partnerships,
Yeah.
and measure us on our clinical trials. I believe they went from 1 to now 5.
Yeah.
And let's maybe even take some questions here that I see on the screen. Of first one from Daniel is, does Peter Thiel have an investment in ABCL? Yes. So
Yeah.
he actually owns 4% of the company. He also is on the board of directors. And so you can see kind of his fingerprints on the company when you look at the flywheel approach, as Kris was talking about. Go
So
ahead.
so I've got some information that isn't really public out there, but it's not something that's like not really, like insider trading. One of the things is Dr. Henson, who's the CEO, is a firm believer in Peter Thiel. Like
Yes,
literally
Carlton.
is
Yes.
one of those guys that's just like he really believes in the 0 to 1 investment philosophy. So I don't know if anyone didn't know that, but I've spoken to some people who have spoken, to them, and yeah, and like I said, I think Dr. Henson really wanted Peter Thiel to be on board, and actually work on this, and that's how I think a lot of the business model was probably developed using Peter Thiel's philosophy.
Agreed.
So just wanted to put that out
Yes, it's very unique, and he said that publicly in some interviews. Uh, so if they work with a smaller drug company, and let's say they can't afford to work with Abcellera, Abcellera will offer to take shares in that company
there.
if they're public and have an ownership stake, or they'll have a royalty which is normally their most common way of revenue is the royalty streams.
Yeah.
And so they have this whole flywheel approach, and they also have it, as you talked about earlier. You can either just use the software, Cilium, which is their AI stacked software, to do your own kind of drug discovery if you feel you have it under control, or you could have their partnership and their research and their team help you with that for that drug discovery. What's another thing that's really interesting, I'm looking here at the Simply Wall Street breakdown of ownership. Individual insider ownership, 28%. Okay, so that should breed, confidence that, hey, if this ship sinks, then they're going down with it, right?
If you're tracking this, you can also see there's been a tremendous amount of insider buying the last quarter as well. So I don't know if that means much to a lot of you guys, but think about it this way. When you have the CEO buying back his own shares, he's like, man, this is great. Your CFO, your COO buying back shares. And this is literally a year after the IPO. So what does that tell you? They're like, hey, this company's been undervalued, and they know it. They see who's the biggest bull of a company? It's your own CEO, because they have the most information about it. If a CEO is buying shares in their own company, that is super bullish to me.
Yeah, no, very much so. And the other piece that's really interesting, I mean, the market cap was only at 4 billion when we first started talking about this company. It's down to 2.4 billion, and institutional ownership is almost 35%. Yeah. There's not many companies at a $2.4 billion market cap that has a third of its holdings in institutional holdings. The TAM for ABCL, Michael asked, what is it? They say on their investor presentation, for antibodies specific drug discovery is $140 billion TAM. So you can see that on their investor presentation. And so I think another question was, does ABCL compete with Ginkgo Bioworks? So Ginkgo is a synthetic biology company. So I would say no, but I don't follow Ginkgo extremely closely. But what ABCL is doing is really more around antibody therapies and not trying to create synthetic materials or anything like that. But I do know that Ginkgo's software is very powerful, and that's another one to watch as synthetic biology grows.
Yeah. There's another company that I know that has a very similar research model to Abcellera. And if you're ever interested, the sector that this is trying to disrupt is something called CROs. Contracted research organizations, right? Contract research organizations, they do exactly what it sounds like. They contract to research for you. So if you have an idea, you hire them, they'll do the research, give you the data, and you pay them. This one's a little different. This one is like, we're a CRO where you contract us, but we're going to become partners, because we know we're that good that you're going to give us a piece of the total revenue that you end up getting. So we're not just risking not getting paid. We're risking, a lot more. So when you have that kind of partner, a lot of pharmaceutical companies they don't mind giving up a little bit to get a lot. And I think what it is it just shows confidence in management to say that, we have a product, we know it's effective, and we're gonna forego that upfront money that we could get for doing the research. But instead, we're going to wait till we get a crap ton more money in the future. Now, there's one thing I really, really want to highlight that I really like about this company right now. One, they're not diluting shareholders at all, because they've got almost $800 million in the bank right now. They barely spend.
You took my high point. You took what I was going to talk about. Yes. No debt on the books.
Yeah. And they're literally right now, they're still, I don't want to say a small operation, but they're really still small. They're not spending more than $30 to $40 million a quarter. They're not burning at all. They're still generating money, because even as a CRO, they're still getting a little bit of money using milestones, research, like research grants. One of the grants that they've got was the Canadian government. Canadian government gave them money to set up a research facility in Canada. And so that's the other thing too. I think after 2024, that's when a lot of things are going to be ramping up, because they're starting to also move into like a little bit of further into how do I say this without sounding too scientific so people understand? They're not trying to essentially just be software. They're trying to be very more involved with the research, but then literally come up with a product that they can just ship directly to the pharmaceutical company, and the pharmaceutical company doesn't have to do very much. They can like right away distribute it and start doing clinical trials, and that's manufacturing, right? So half of research is researching something that's effective. The other half is figuring out a way to mass produce it, because if you can't mass produce it, nothing, it's not worth it, right? So that's the part that's kind of like oncoming that we should start to see in 2024, where not only will they do the research portion for you, but they'll also do the research around how to properly manufacture it and then hand that off to the pharmaceutical companies so that they can capitalize and basically like mass produce it.
Yep. So we'll wrap up Abcellera really quick. There's some questions I want to get to that were answered, just so we make sure we answer those, and then we'll jump topics here. So we have Abe saying, hard time understanding what this company's focus is. So I'll try to sum it up quickly, and you can add some color to it, Kris, if there's anything I miss. So this company is solving the problem for antibody monoclonal drug discovery. Of 90% of drugs fail through the drug discovery process. Okay, so 90% of drugs fail. The process for the time length to take a drug from conception to product is at least typically 10 years. Okay, so I think we'll see that time shrink as technology continues to advance. We've seen that through COVID, but they have a higher success rate, which they already have shown with BAM-V, which was their first drug that was created. They were able to turn that around within a 90-day time frame, and they can either basically sell their software usage, Celium, which is their AI stacked software to help discover these antibodies for new drug discovery, or they can help you through that research process and help you through the discovery process as a service. What sets them apart is they bought a company called Triani, who create these genetically modified mice that basically allow you to replicate the human genome and antibody scope of a human all at once. Right. And you can see all the antibodies, and then you can penetrate and look at the different combinations of what's highly going to give you the most success to create a drug, right? Based on what kind of outcome you're trying to get and what kind of drug, what antibodies are needed. That's very hard to do. So if you can do it faster, more affordable, and a higher success rate, you have now disrupted a traditional drug discovery model in business. Kris, anything you'd add to that?
Yeah, I would say look at this company from the lens of a pharmaceutical company, right? So and I'll say exactly why. Let's say you're the CEO of a pharmaceutical company. One of your scientists comes to you and says, "Hey, listen, I have this idea that this one drug, it could be effective against plaque psoriasis." So you as the CEO say to yourself, "Okay, what am I gonna have to do to get this, get this scientist in front of the right people and do all the right research and to get this drug, it could be effective, it could be not. So first I have to support the scientist. I have to give him some money so that he can go buy, equipment. He has to hire a team. He has to then get a whole bunch of other things together. He has to license out some of the research machines that are required in order to do it. You have to build out an infrastructure around this idea. All of that costs money, and it takes a lot of time. It takes effort. 2 years down the line, this researcher says, "Hey, listen, this product, I had an idea, and that idea doesn't work. It's not effective. What are you going to do now?" Well, guess what? You have all this stuff that you bought, that you licensed, that you hired all these people, you know, it's all lost, right? Now, imagine instead you go back and you say, okay, you know what? That same scientist comes to you and says, hey, I have an idea of this plaque psoriasis. You know, I think this drug could be effective against it. This specific monoclonal. I've seen it in blood samples with some people and who've had it and they've been able to get better. What are we going to, what are we going to do? So the pharmaceutical, now the CEO says, you know what? I have an idea. There's a company that does specialization in research. They already have the infrastructure. They already have the scientists. They have all the licensing required to do the research. You're going to go call them. You're going to work with them. You're going to tell them your idea. They're going to sign an NDA so they can't steal it from you. And they're going to take a small piece of it. But guess what? You're going to work hand in hand with those people. They're PhDs, they're researchers, they're scientists. They have software and they have everything ready for you to do your research. Go work with them. You know what that costs the CEO? A phone call. That's it. Yep. That's the value proposition.
See, that's why you could explain it a lot easier. Yeah. I wanted you to put some color there. So we like the company. Michael said, hey, this is interesting. I'm going to have to do some more DD on it. They're profitable. Yes, that's a big call out. They do have cash. The PE is only 12. So yes, it's a very interesting company, and we always encourage people to do your own homework, earn your own conviction. We're not going to tell you to buy, sell a stock, but we just want to provide information that will help you do that DD. Last question on it. Someone said that the Palantir CFO, Shyam Sankar, is on Ginkgo's board of directors, which is true. And Peter Thiel is on the board of directors for ABCL. Do you think they're using Foundry? I've hypothesized that, but there's no living proof of either on that yet. So
I think they share a business model, but I don't think they share actual software. I think they're two different pieces of software. They could have some backbone and some help integrating things, but I don't think so. As of right now, nothing leads me to believe that they're working hand in hand to use Foundry.
Yeah. So let's switch topics now. We've for those, we appreciate those who stuck through Abcellera. If you haven't heard it and not familiar with it, hopefully you now at least going to go explore it. So looking at all of these growth companies getting just smashed up this past couple months, and we may not be through the beat down, right? We know that the S&P 500 still has to come down. We could see the NASDAQ still come down 10 to 15%, even more. And that's why you hit on a great point of dollar cost averaging. If there's anything that I've learned in my 3 years of individual investing and 11 of index fund investing, dollar cost averaging is just a disciplined way to take the emotion out of the game, which I've just being honest that I've definitely messed that up with thinking I'm getting in at the lowest price and putting a little more chunks than I should have. Had I dollar cost average on Palantir through the price of going from 25 to 13, Abcellera, you can list all the different ones because it's just so unpredictable. Like I would have never thought with what we have going through today to see these stocks slashed to 60, 70% off on some of these stocks. So looking at that, I think another thing is looking at the trends. If you are a long-term investor, what trends are you excited about? So I'd like to hear from you first, and then I'll go through mine. But I think when you look at trends that are undeniable, that we've seen research and Gartner and other reputable companies talk about, and we know that we're headed there, I think that's a great starting point to research where you want to be invested.
I'd say my biggest thing is AI. So any company that's not focusing on having AI built into their products, they're not going to do very well. And what I mean by AI is there's different things about AI. It's not what I know. A lot of people think AI is just, you type in a question and it gives you an answer. And that's not it. A lot of it is also learning, right? The thing that makes us different than a computer is that we can learn and we can distinguish. There's still a lot of things that we are really good at that computers will never 100% be good at.
Hmm.
And I think that's the key that I think a lot of technology that I really like to look at to see how we can make this experience better and make the experience for the users better, but also become more profitable, because you can take a product that used to take a really long time to, let's say, do research on and condense it down into a very short period of time. Anytime that you can save time, you're saving value and you're creating more value from it. So once again, I don't want to harp too much on Abcellera, but that's the value proposition, that they do research, but they use AI in their research so that it dramatically shortens the amount of time it takes to do the research. And when you combine that with an organization that does nothing but research, it's like it's like Ford and the cars when they first started building cars, right? They used to build each car by hand. Someone would go do the wheels, and then they build this part. So they used to build every car by hand, one at a time. Henry Ford changed the game. He didn't invent the car. All he did was change the process so that the guy who makes wheels does nothing but wheels. The guy who makes windshields does nothing but windshields, right? So when you take effects like that and you put them together in a system, you create a lot of value that can be projected, and you can lower down costs. The amount of time it takes to do a product goes down significantly, right? So that's what I see. So a lot of companies right now, they have processes out there, but they need to incorporate AI to figure out how can we do that same process with less people and less time, right? So that this way we can capture that time value and, one, make it better for the consumers from a cost perspective, but then also be more profitable. If it takes you, let's say, a week to make a product, you should be trying to figure out how to make it in 5 days, because that 2-day savings is huge, right? Now, how are you going to figure out how to save those 2 days? Are you going to hire more people? Well, that'll increase costs. Is that really what you want to do? Let's say you want to figure out how to automate things so that, when you automate it, let's say a computer does some of it and the human operator only has to press a couple of buttons to make it happen, right? You end up with a really good finished product that only takes 5 days to make. One of the things that I really want to actually discuss here is that I think a lot of people think AI is going to come along and replace humans and we're all just going to be controlled by machines. That's not what's going to happen. Okay. Yeah. Humans have a lot of powers that machines just do not have. And I'll give you a really good example of something that was in 0 to 1, right? And I'll give you an anecdote right now, and you'll be shocked because you'll be like, yeah, you're absolutely right. So here's a question. If right now you go to a computer that's artificial intelligence and you show it 1 billion pictures of a dog, right? You train it. This is what a dog looks like.
Mm-hmm.
You put a German Shepherd in front of it, it'll know that's a German Shepherd. But let's say you put Clifford, the big red dog, in front of it. Will that computer figure out that that's a dog? No. It'll say, no, it doesn't match. It doesn't have the same characteristics, blah, blah, blah. It'll be too difficult for that computer to figure that out. But you take a 4-year-old, you show them a bunch of pictures of dogs, and you show them Clifford, the red dog, they'll say, that's a dog. They'll know it. That is the analytical ability of the human mind to pick up on things without even being 100% trained on it. So I think that's where we are going to be safe, and that we will have new technologies that come that help us become more productive, not less productive. And it'll also at the same time won't completely remove us from the equation. It just means that we'll be more efficient to do it. And that's where the value proposition is.
Are there any companies that we all know Palantir and Abcellera are two of our major holdings, but are there any other companies that are making breakthroughs in AI that you've invested in or looking to invest in that quantifiably show that value to customers, that we can reduce time, we can give you time to value and provide that ROI?
The most immediate one that I can see right now, and I know this is going to sound shocking, but Zoom video. In terms of Zoom video, there's a lot to say about interacting with two people, right? We can interact with each other all day, every day, but there's other effects that come from being able to interact that we do right now without even noticing. One is taking notes. Right now, let's say I'm talking to you, right? Zoom has the ability to actually create a transcript of what me and you are talking about, right? And now putting it on the side. Guess what? With artificial intelligence, it can even create a summary of everything that we just had a conversation about. We can spend 3 hours re-listening to this podcast and then creating notes and then handing it to another person that's going to be able to use it. But Zoom can actually take all that data, aggregate it into a transcript, take that aggregated transcript, and now create a summary for you. How crazy is that, right? Now, yeah, let's think about it from a real use case scenario. Let's say I'm having a conversation with a client, right? There's a bunch of talking points that we talk about. I want to give my full attention to the client, not to the notepad I'm writing on. So now if I have that full ability to talk to you and everything is recorded in that transcript, that's saving me a bunch of time, because after the conversation is done, all my talking points are laid out right there, ready to go. Anytime I want to do a contract now, I can go right to those talking points, put that into the contract, DocuSign it over to that guy, and literally while we're still talking, have them sign off and done. What used to take days sometimes of relearning things, going back, reviewing things, can now be automated and put into a system.
I mean, I can tell you that just from being in sales for so long, of having those sales conversations, having my notepad, then having to put that into Salesforce, having to go back. There's a value there, right? And I think you hit on it earlier about AI, is that time to value that artificial intelligence delivers. Some other cases of just what you've explained, we talked last night about the medical field, right? That a lot of time is spent with note taking, and also too making sure that it's correct, right? So if you have something that's automatically getting all of that, summarizing it, the amount of patience you can see in time is now a lot more, right?
And that's the reason why, if you look at Microsoft, they bought up Nuance, right? Nuance is technically an AI company that basically does a lot of machine learning to figure out what people are saying, because what I sound like and what Dom sounds like are two different things. But you know what? We have a lot of things. And that's the thing. It's something called natural language machine learning, where I think a lot of times, that Nuance was probably the leader in that. And right now, Microsoft recognized that hey, if we want to do something in the future around this industry, we're gonna have to buy up somebody who's got that. And that was Nuance. So I'm glad Microsoft bought Nuance. They're gonna do very well on Nuance.
I like what you said there. There's several things that I think people missed when that acquisition. I'm pretty sure it's close to clearing, right? Like it had a lot of regulation, making sure antitrust going through on that. But I believe it passed through. I'm pretty sure it passed. It's not completed, but it passed through the regulation piece of antitrust. That was such a sneaky buy for them for $19 billion. And Microsoft wants to be the healthcare player, right? And we know Apple said they want to as well. And I'm sure they're going to make some very creative purchases. They have a lot of cash on hand, these monster mega cap companies. But to be able to now, okay, we agreed last night, Teams sucks. It's not a great product, but if they work on that, you mix that with Nuance, and now all of a sudden you're building this healthcare ecosystem. You're looking at like, oh, Microsoft, a healthcare company, right? They're expanding into all these different verticals. And so Nuance was no one even really talked about it. They're like, oh yeah, Microsoft's buying Nuance for $19 billion. Okay, let's, why are they doing that, right? No one else was looking at that, but you're right. They are the leader in that field.
I think Microsoft is trying to build an ecosystem where your interaction, whether you wake up in the morning to the minute you sleep, is a Microsoft product. And I think that's what it is. Like right now, and the thing with Microsoft is that sometimes they do a really good job and sometimes they don't. And I think a lot of times they don't. Like, who uses Cortana? Nobody. Like I'm not going to say the A word because she would go.
Don't do that.
Yeah, but literally, I wake up in the morning and I'm calling out her name. I look at my phone and I'm talking to Siri. It's crazy, like how we're interacting with machines now, right? So I think the next step is to take away the physical typing on the thing and doing that. Now I think it's going to be like, hey Siri, turn on my car. Which, believe it or not, my wife's Lexus does that. It's really cool to see too, right? So I think that's where we're going. She's on my computer right now, dictating everything that I'm talking about. Ignore that, Siri. Whatever.
So,
but yeah, that's what it is. I think a lot of times we are trying to develop an ecosystem in how we're going to we're going to interact with machines. Literally, as I said the S word, she came on and she just started like taking all this stuff. So I think that's where we're going in the future. How we're interacting.
Yeah. I think you hit on a big point. Then we'll answer a question from Blake on a particular stock. When I look to invest, there's some different key things that I look for in a company. Founder led. We talked last night about leadership and how important that is. We look at innovative trends. We look at high growth, high margin, good balance sheets. But I also look for a platform. I look for the ecosystem, because what you're seeing, everyone, when they say software is eating the world up and software as a service, why do you like software as a service as an investor? Well, you like it because it's recurring revenue. You like it because it's high gross margin and you're not impacted during times like this in inflation, or at least not as bad, right? For sure. And you like an ecosystem because I can expand on that. It becomes stickier. It becomes with network effects. The Windows operating system, an example of an ecosystem. Apple, probably the ecosystem of our time right now. I'm a candidate of an example of this. I swore I would never get any kind of Apple device. I was all Android. And then work sent me a MacBook Pro. And I was like, what have I been missing out on for the last 20 years of computing? I'm never going back to Windows. I ended up getting an iWatch. I have my tablet. I have my Apple TV. I have the whole ecosystem, and the experience is great. And and that was not cheap, but I bought all of those because the ecosystem was so fluid and effective, right? So when you can do that in any kind of field, whether it's biotech like Abcellera or Palantir with data analytics, that ability to do that really can provide some serious growth. And now Microsoft's doing it in verticals, right, of ecosystems. So Blake has a great question. I think you're going to have a little more answers on this one than I am. I don't have a lot of expertise in crypto, but he says, can you guys give your take on Coin and Rocket Lab? Coin's under $200. Seems like a great buy. Rocket Lab's a long-term play. So I'm not familiar with Rocket Lab, but I do own Coinbase. That is one of my plays for crypto. It's that, Silvergate Capital, and Square. So kind of some indirect picks and shovels type of play. I think that Coinbase could be like the app store for crypto, right? That's my thesis on it. It's founder-led. Brian Armstrong owns a lot of shares. They have a great balance sheet, high growth, extremely high growth, a lot of demand in a lot of different ways of crypto with NFTs and all of that. That's as far as really my take is on it. I got in at 250 and I thought I was getting a great deal. So yes, under 200. I mean, it was as high as 450, and based off their valuation, I think, it's definitely a good time to add or start a position.
I think Coinbase is kind of like TD Ameritrade, Fidelity, and everything else, right? They have competitors. There's Voyager, there's Gemini, there's a whole bunch of other crypto exchanges, but they're taking a dominant fee. They're taking the dominant share of it because that's what everyone likes. They have everything kind of like put together very well. So I think it's the same kind of concept. I think from a valuation standpoint, if you look at the revenues that Coinbase has and the profitability they have, and you tie that into like a Fidelity and see how much Fidelity is worth, that's what you're going to get. And I think the other thing is, think of them also like a bank, right? Because essentially they're providing banking services. So I think of them as pseudo software, pseudo banking / financial company. I think everyone is getting to the point where crypto is going to be a part of our financial future. There's no way around it. I mean, maybe it won't be, the only thing, but it's becoming a part of it. I wouldn't be surprised if TD Ameritrade or Fidelity or someone tries to buy them out, because that was just add right back into their model.
That would be so brilliant. if
Yeah, I
someone did that.
mean, yeah, but I don't know if Coinbase would want to sell, but
Right.
you know,
Yeah, I'm
yeah.
not familiar with Rocket Lab, so I'm sorry, Blake. I know that they're in that space as well, so I won't be able to give you any commentary on that one. Um, on that point of crypto too, I don't. Do you have a lot? Do you have Bitcoin or Ethereum or anything?
I I have very small
Yeah.
speculative plays on it. I don't have much, to be honest with you. It's not that I don't believe in the technology. I think crypto technology is going to be very big. I think everyone is using it, and there's so many use cases for it. But I don't necessarily think currency, like the transactions that we're going to have, are directly based on it. So I think I think of it as like investing in the internet, right? I don't know who's the Google of that world yet. I know Bitcoin is probably going to be like the gold of it, where it's going to be an asset, but
Mhm.
I don't necessarily know if there's companies that are currently building themselves out to be crypto service providers that we don't necessarily know. I mean, I know there's platforms out there that are built on crypto, but I just have to do a lot more research. I mean, crypto is everywhere, and I should do more research. Maybe I
No,
will.
I'm right there with
Yeah,
you. So I
yeah.
agree with everything you said there. Bitcoin is getting to a point where it's like so cheap. I'm like, man, I just probably need to just put 2% of my portfolio in there just to have that. But
Yeah.
I chose a different path to be associated with crypto in that having a decent sized position in Square. I
Yeah.
think Jack Dorsey's definitely very passionate about the blockchain. And to your point, I think there's a lot of different use cases that we'll see throughout with crypto. Um, and then Coinbase, I think will be definitely what I like about Coinbase is whether you sell or buy, the price goes up and down. They're making money. Now they are
Yeah.
making money off fees. I know everyone's big bear case is, well, what if they go to zero fees, just like stocks did? They are going to have to be creative and build out that ecosystem and platform and add more value other than fees. I think that Brian Armstrong and his team will do that. But I don't have a monster position in coin, but I do like, I'm paying attention and watching them closely.
I'm in the same boat as you are. I think Jack Dorsey is he's a good CEO. He knows what he's doing. He's built multiple businesses that have
Yeah.
gone parabolic. So I think putting your money in the hands of someone like that is a good idea. I have a Square position as well, so
Yeah.
I'm right there with you with regards to Square.
And now that it's been just beat up beyond a pulp, and I like their balance sheet. I like their formidable
Yeah.
growth. So yeah, the other one is Silvergate Capital. I like that they're a bank first. They were investing in crypto 10 years ago, and the idea they are basically the main bank or preferred choice bank that transacts with institutions with Bitcoin and investments. They also just were the main bank that signed up with Facebook for Diem and their Metaverse. So I really like that they were so forward thinking. I believe they're founder led. If not, their CEO's been there for a while, and he's really sharp when you listen to him. And interest rates. If interest rates are going to go up, I think which they will, in my opinion. Having a bank play, not that I have a lot, but that would be a creative way of having some exposure there.
Yeah, I mean, I have to do more research on it.
Yeah.
I mean, I see there's a ton of use cases,
Mhm.
and I see that happening in the technology stack. I just don't know who's like how to profit from that technology.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, and the other thing that always scares me is that people are trading NFTs like the
Oh
pictures
yeah.
of apes. I still don't get that. Like, I when I
There's
see that happen, I just
you
can't
know
get behind that.
yeah,
You
we
know?
live in a world where value, perceived value, even if we don't get it, if people say it's valuable, um, people can exchange for millions of dollars and thousands of dollars for those kind of things. But we'll kind of switch off here now. I do want to make sure to answer some more questions. We're getting some more coming in. Um,
Sure.
Dom, do you think Palantir's sales team will be successful? Is Foundry a sellable product? Yes, and I'll expand there in a second. Dr. Cart
Right.
mentioned selling variations of Foundry. Does that mean that the sales team is struggling or a way to scale? I think it's a way to scale. I think Kris, and you
Mhm.
comment this. We both watched the interview yesterday. I thought it was, as everyone said, the best interview he ever had because he opened up a lot more about his philosophy. on the company in competition. You got to keep in mind what he said in that interview. They were an engineering company first for over 20 years, right? They are now adding the sales component and understand they have to be successful there, but they don't want to disrupt their engineering culture and philosophy and everything that has there. And you have to keep these top talent engineers, but you also have to develop a sales methodology and culture there. The other thing is they haven't broken down Foundry into all the different modules yet. They are working on that to sell them. They're identifying which ones are going to be the most important of our time. So you've seen Foundry for crypto, Foundry for carbon footprint, Foundry for CRM and ERP. They are doing that first, and then I think we will see that through scale. But it's the business model. This is not an instant business model. It is acquire, expand, then scale. The first two parts for those 6 to 9 months, they are not collecting much money from their customers. So it is a compounding effect. The longer you hold your Palantir shares, the more you'll see contribution margins, the more you'll see returns. Kris, do you want to comment on that?
Yeah, I mean, software sales is one of those things that I think a lot of times people think you're just buying a box, right? And you're just taking it and you're plugging it in and everything is good to go. And that's not the case. Software requires a lot of investment, not just upfront on the cost of the product that you're paying a vendor for, but it's also changing your own culture to use that product. And with something as transformative as Foundry, you're not just integrating a small piece of software into your business. You're integrating a lot of other departments into using it. I mean, I'm sure you've had experience in that, right, Dom? Where you're trying to sell software and you're trying to give them a use case. I think a lot of times you have to have that imaginative CEO think about what are the use cases that I don't necessarily see that you're trying to sell me, right? And how do you get that? I think right now Palantir is doing some soul searching, and I really hope, and I agree with the video that was put out a couple of days ago by CodeStrap, which was they need to start working on developing a developer community and engaging them, because you want these people to go to the CEOs and say, hey, we need Palantir Foundry because it can do X, Y, and Z for us. If a salesperson goes right to the CEO and says, hey, I have this great product, they're going to get laughed out of the office. The CEO is like, I don't see what you're talking about. Get out. Whereas if they have one of their own internal guys come up and say, hey, look, I think our competitors are going to get ahead of us if we don't get this product. CEO's like, wait, what? Let's take a look. Let's take a look at what they can do for us. And I think that's what it's going to be. So there's going to be a lot more grassroots. And I think right now Palantir has huge community right now. They have a lot, like they're out there. They need to capitalize on that. And I think the way that they're going to have to do it is by developing a developer community, having people create more use cases, and take small pieces of Palantir and structure them in a way that's that gets the whole product in. So an example I would say is, imagine trying to sell somebody Microsoft Windows in the year 1985. They're going to say, this is BS. I don't need this. I'm running my business just fine. Guess what? Instead, sell them Excel. Once they start using Excel and they see how great it is, now they're going to say, man, what else do you guys have? We have PowerPoint. Now you can present your data in a really cool way. This way you were able to do all your calculations really easy. Now you can present it. Oh, what else do you have? Oh yeah, we have another product. Before you know it, they'll all be buying Windows. So sell them the small pieces, let them get the use cases, and then expand out so that then you can sell them the entire Foundry product. That's what I would say to them, to say, hey, look.
Well, I think he highlighted that in the interview, that I think they're thinking like that, which is good. Some more questions coming in on Palantir. FDIC and Foundry for crypto partnership. Will this let banks hold and sell crypto? Not sure. I do know that it is going to enable a lot of the crypto companies to make sure that privacy and regulation and compliance can happen. Another question on that: do you think of Palantir as a crypto play with Foundry for crypto and the features it provides? I do. I don't think that it's not necessarily fully baked. I just don't think they've showcased enough of what's going to happen and who's using it. We don't even know what companies are actually using this yet. But they brought it out for a reason, to say, hey, when you look at all the problems that they've been solving, they've been ahead of the game. They were talking about vaccines and a possible epidemic or pandemic, years ago, right? So I do think that, that's a nice bonus for being a Palantir holder, that they're going to be playing in that realm and they respect that and know that's going to be a big area, but not why I invest in Palantir. Another question here. In terms of Palantir, can you guys explain your understanding of what a digital twin is? Oh, I love this question. I'll let you go because I've been doing a lot of talking here. Do you see VR and AR as a way businesses could interact with these digital twins using Palantir? Oh, this is a fun question. I could talk all day about this one, but I'll let you go first.
I don't really. I see it as a digital twin in terms of being able to make a decision in the. Well, basically, you make a decision and you see how it affects the digital twin, right? And that's what will make you want to do it or not. So an example is and I'll use a very simple example. Let's say I have a car and it has 100 miles left before it runs out of gas, right? Now, do I want to fill up my gas right now, or do I want to chance it and fill up at mile 99? Well, let's run it through a digital twin based on the current data, right? With current traffic conditions, with current weather conditions, all that stuff. Guess what happens? Even though the car said we have 100 miles to go, at 88 miles, or let's say 98 miles, the car just stops. Guess what? You're going to make sure you fill up your car before you drive, right? Even though that thing said 100 miles, it didn't get you to 100 miles. So that's what you can do. You can make an operational business decision and see how it will impact you in the future by doing it today and seeing if it'll work or not. And if it doesn't work, then you won't do it, right? So you can run a whole bunch of scenarios. You can say, well, what if I stopped and I got my gas at 25 miles? Will I make it? Will I do it at 50? Will I make it? Will I do it at a 75? Will I make it? So let's say the software tells you at 75 miles, you're able to gas up and you won't have a problem with current traffic conditions. You would drive 75 miles where the cheapest gas station might be and be able to save money. If I buy, if I'm living in, let's say, New York City, and I gas up at my building in Manhattan, I'm going to pay $1 more, whereas I could have filled up in Jersey for $1 less. So, but I have to know that I'll be able to make it to New Jersey, right, in order to get my gas for a cheaper price. So that's what a digital twin can help you do, which is just contextualize. In terms of AR, VR, I don't know. Maybe, Dom, you can shed some light on it.
Yeah. So I'm just bursting with excitement here with this comment, because this is why I invest in Palantir and NVIDIA, or at least one of the main reasons. So with NVIDIA, they have created the Omniverse. They have created a metaverse for enterprise, right? Before Facebook came out with Meta, there was already Omniverse, and they've already gotten customers using it. Actually, over 25,000 customers, enterprises already using this. They're off of their beta. Now they're in GA selling it, having studios interact with these digital twins and being able to cross collaborate with artists and employees for their company in this virtual world, where I'll give you a use case that they advertised at their last GTC conference. BMW used this Omniverse to be able to create digital twin factories that simulated the exact real factory that they were going to build. Okay. And so they were able to save 30% costs for building their factories. They have 30 different digital twins now of factories that they have, and it goes from safety protocols to lighting to all of the processes. They even have employees wear digital balls, the capture suits, to be able to see work comp situations of, should our panels and boxes be over here? Is this going to be more ergonomically correct? All of these different things that go back to Kris's point about AI, which is, artificial intelligence essentially gives you time to value. Time is money, right? In business, and honestly in life, in a lot of ways, right? Because it's the most precious thing you can't get back. So their intelligence essentially gives you time to value. Time is money, right? In business, and honestly in life, in a lot of ways, right? Because it's the most precious thing you can't get back. So they're doing that from that perspective in an AR VR capability with NVIDIA. Palantir is doing it from a data analytics perspective of doing a digital twin of your entire data set, unstructured, structured data on one platform, right? Think MongoDB on steroids. It's all on one operating system. And I can interact with this data with low code or no code. Why is that important? Because if Kris is not a programmer and he works in accounting, he's not going to be creating any code or development or anything. Yeah. But if you can give him access to data in a GUI that makes sense, that is like literally dummy proof and can mimic business processes with how people are paid or whatever his responsibilities are in accounting, and you can test it out and show that you're saving money for the company, it plays exactly into Kris's point of just get this part of the business using this. Oh, you saved millions of dollars here. Okay, now let's see what you can do in this part of the business. And so that is the ecosystem play that once you start using it, that's why the Army has been using their products now for multiple years, spending more money because they're finding more value in different departments. So to your point there, Blake, I think the digital twin of data and being able to make decisions faster that generate ROI, quantifiable. To Kris's point, when he's asking me about selling SaaS, the challenge you have selling SaaS to a CEO in an enterprise is proving that ROI, proving that you can save money. You give me $1 million, Kris, and I can save you $5 million back, and I can prove that, then all of a sudden you're going to cut me that PO, right? Yep. And so that is the premise of Palantir's business model. You go acquire, we're going to teach you how to use it. We're going to get you saving some money. Expand, we're going to expand into other departments and you're going to see more ROI. Scale, okay, now your whole company's using it and you need to pay me some money, right? And so it's a different way of thinking about SaaS, and you can only commit to that kind of business model if your product is so much better than anyone else's that you know you're going to get to scale phase. Heck, you might even skip expand and go straight to scale. So
I just want to add one thing. You guys remember in Avengers Endgame where Doctor Strange runs a million scenarios in his head and then it comes up with that one decision?
That's such a good one.
That right there is what Palantir does. Or a digital twin will let you do. Run 1 million simulations and figure out how to beat Thanos. There you go.
Yes. I like that. I like that a lot.
Yeah.
We got some more questions here. Let's see. Square, I think that they'll have a huge foothold in Africa. Seems like Dorsey is really invested and passionate in helping that market with financial services. Yes, he has spoken a lot about that. I don't know what he's showcased about it, but that is an area that could really benefit from digital wallets and everything else, and our whole world can. So I'm a big fan of Dorsey, so I like the comment there, Ryan. Let's see here. I've heard an opinion that Palantir might replace data analytics or data admins. I don't think that that's going to happen. You said no, Kris. You want to just comment there?
No, the way that I would probably explain it and just say, did the computer replace people? Like when we started using computers, right? A lot of people thought, man, my job is gone. Like, this computer is going to come and do everything for me. Guess what? New jobs started, new industries started, database administrators, everything else. Dude, if anything, your job becomes more important because you need to make sure all the data that's being pumped into Foundry is accurate data. So how are you going to do that? Well, you're going to need a human on the other end, making sure that all those pipelines that are connected to Palantir are working, right? So that's what I would say to anyone thinking that technology is going to replace them. It's not going to replace them. It's going to open up opportunities for a lot of people. And I think especially in the next 10 years, I think technology is going to be all around us. Sensors are getting smaller and smaller. There's more data coming all over the place. So the pie is just growing more and more and more. So Palantir, all it's helping us do is, as the pie grows, to make sure that the person at the other end of that pie isn't overwhelmed, that they're able to work on what they need to while basically ingesting all that data. So that's what I would say about that.
And I know we kind of went sideways. We wanted to make sure to answer the questions in Q&A. But this all started when we were talking about like what are the trends that we want to invest in long term. And you said AI. I want to piggyback off your comment right there. And for me, it's data, right? Those go hand in hand. What do we know that within the next 3 years, it's going to create more data than has ever been created of all time, right? And that compounding exponential effect with AI and with data is going to continue, right? I'm going to bring in Amit. He actually was joining in, and I thought we'd bring him on to add to this conversation. Hey,
Yo, what up?
What's up? What's up? How's everyone doing?
Good, man. Good. We're just talking about trends that we want to invest in long term. That we're okay going through this crazy time and volatility while everyone's freaking out. It's obviously not fun when you see your portfolio in red. But what are some of the trends that we know?
Guys, I'm gonna go get some water. I'll be back.
Yeah, you're good, man. So, Kris said AI. I said data. Along with AI. For yourself, is there any other trends that excite you from an investing perspective that you can feel confident are going to happen?
I mean, I would agree with you guys. Data and tech. It's so interesting, right? Like the time period that we're in, because like if this was the 1940s and we had YouTube or something, like we would be talking about oil, right? Yeah. Like we would be just betting on oil stocks because like oil is it. And now, I mean, like, I just don't see tech going anywhere. I mean, the first video I ever made on Palantir was like, I missed out on Shopify and Tesla. And when I see missed out, I just mean like, I didn't get in when like it was $13 like it is right now. Yeah. And I really, and I had the money to invest in those companies in 2016, 2017. It wasn't a lot, but I was making, a couple thousand a year. I could have just dumped it in there while I was in college. So now, so you got to realize as you get older, it's like, well, what's going to be around when I'm 30, when you're 40, when we're 50? And I don't think it's going to be oil. It's going to be tech. Like there's nothing stopping data. There's nothing stopping AI. There's nothing stopping IoT. And that's why, that's why I'm very passionate about Palantir. That's why I think we're all passionate about Palantir. It's like, well, what's going to be the number one company doing that?
And there was a comment, Ryan said, data's the new oil. And I think Palantir is one of the refineries for that oil. I agree with you in that, like, majority of my portfolio is tech, like 75%. I have probably like 50 to 70 stocks, but my top 20 are about 90% of my actual returns, right? Of what my portfolio is weighted. And a lot of that is tech. And I think you can still segment tech into different kinds of technology. I think that you can still technically be diversified from that perspective. And why I'm okay with that is exactly what you said. I don't think tech's going anywhere. I think as a civilization and as a people, we want things faster, smarter, easier, lower costs. And in order to do all of that, technology drives that, right?
What's the bear case? What are we missing? How is there a world in 10 years from now tech has not been the highest growing sector of the economy? Like, where is the argument? Like, maybe we could brainstorm it that we are wrong and that tech in 2030, the best stocks will not have been tech stocks from 2022. Like, I just don't see that. That's why it's like, that's why all the volatility as well. It's like, well, if you didn't invest enough to the point where you can't sleep at night, it's like you literally can wait 8 years because it's an objective 2 + 2 = 4 fact that tech will outperform. And I'm trying to think, what is the bear case against that? Financially?
I haven't thought of one yet.
It's not going to be energy because most of the energy is going to be renewable stuff that's powered by tech. It's not going to be oil and gas.
The biggest thing is like data is more accessible than it's ever been. How is that not going to be the case 10 years from now?
So here's where I would say tech is always expanding out, right? It's getting bigger and bigger and bigger. But that doesn't mean that every single company has something of value. I think that's where we have to distinguish, right? Tech as a whole will definitely be really, really big 10 years from now. And it's the case right now. It's going to get even bigger. We need to find the diapers.coms and make sure that no one invests in those diapers.coms. I think a lot of stuff when it comes to tech is around really great things that'll happen, but there's also a lot of bullshit companies out there that are pseudoscience, right? you've got the Theranoses of the world, right? We need to find those tech companies that are complete BS and not invest in them. That's all. That's what I would say. Find the high quality ones, invest in them.
Is there a world in which Palantir is the BS tech company? Is the diapers.com? Is there any? I'm just so. You guys be objective. Is there any world in which that's the case?
I don't think so, because if it was, a lot of people would have been using it, right? A lot of people would not have been using it, whether that be the U.S. government, a lot of these Fortune 500 companies, right? Pseudo things work only to a point, which afterwards someone raises red flags. Palantir's been around 17 years. If there was some pseudo-ness to it, and if there was some fake stuff like vaporware, that wouldn't have been the case.
I mean, for me, the only bear case on Palantir is, and I've said this numerous times, if leadership collapses and just says, you know, we're done, we've accomplished what we want, we're out. As you heard Alex talk yesterday in that interview, the culture that they have fostered and the talent that they have acquired, and he talks about how it's important to not only get that talent, but retain that talent and keep that culture and make these engineers feel like they're not in a dictatorship. There's very few leaders that can pull that off and deliver results, and they've done that, right? So I don't think that they're the BS stock that doesn't, you know, fulfill like what, I mean, you look at Tesla, right? Tesla traded 5 years sideways. Yeah. So many people talk trash about, and I see Michael said, hey, 60% of my portfolio is in Tesla. You've done pretty well, my friend. So with
unless
that,
you invested on Friday.
Yeah, that's true. There you go. Good point. Good point. You know, there's especially when you look at FinTwit and like what the investing community and the new type of investors and retail and how much more accessible it's been. Not many people would wait 5 years for something to trade sideways.
Yeah, I think the other thing we also have to look at is, are there any big tech companies that might get disrupted? I don't know. You know, 20 years ago, everyone was saying GE was the largest company on the planet. Right now, they're not, right? So just because, you know, tech is at the forefront and I think innovation happens, I think what also happens is tech, and not just tech, but big companies, once you get to a certain size, you become very complacent and you lose that innovative edge that you've had in developing new things and keeping up, because now you're dealing with a bureaucratic machine, right? I look at Google right now and I see their biggest things about Google right now. They're getting hit with antitrust issues all over Europe and now even in the US, right? Yeah. They've got a culture right now that's self-destructive because literally they're not innovating, you know? So now they're bogged down with the problems of a big corporation rather than that small corporation that's flexible, that's able to kind of like, you know, invest in different things and become bigger. So I think right now the edge that Google had 10, 15 years ago is gone. And if they don't reignite that edge somehow in the next 10, 15 years, Google may not be a tech leader in 20 years from now, right?
Does Google outperform Palantir in the next 10 years?
I don't think so. No. Because they're working on two different areas. And I think the drive for Palantir to succeed is way higher than what Google has right now. Google has like, yeah, we already succeeded. Now we're just, you know what it is? They're on the throne, right? Yeah. They're getting too comfortable on the throne, right? Palantir trying to get to be on the throne. So I always say, buy the company that's trying to dethrone the king, not just the king. But there's also another saying that we should also remember, you know, if you go after the king, you best not miss. So just letting Palantir know, you go against big boy Google, don't expect them to just lay there without having some sort of, you know, they come back against you. So like I said, that's what I think about that.
But I mean, It goes back to the question as well. I think Google's focused on search at the end. Like their money comes from when we type something in, and like Palantir they don't care about that at all. And it's like you said, Google can innovate and like maybe enter in the realm of what Palantir's trying to do, edge AI, all that stuff. But it's like at the expense of giving up search. Like to me, search is not going away for a long time. I mean, you see these websites like DuckDuckGo and all this stuff. It's like, okay, cool. But 3.6 billion people are not online yet. 80% of them are going to be on Android devices where YouTube and Google is the default browser. It's just like, well, search isn't going away. And if they don't keep innovating on search, then most of their growth is going to go away. Like for them to invest in what Palantir is trying to do when there's no sign of profitability, presumably for the next 5-10 years, and there is a public company. We saw what happened when Netflix didn't grow. We got to talk about Netflix, by the way. But so it's like, as a bureaucracy, I think your point makes a lot of sense, which is like, if they don't keep improving on the thing that makes them money, the public markets are not going to reward them. Not at this
And
level.
you never know when an incumbent comes in and disrupts you, right? Like an example right now, privacy is starting to become a big thing with people. So who knows if a search engine can come up with a better algorithm than Google can without having to track all your data.
Right.
Right.
Which is a hard thing to do, because if they don't track your data, it's hard
for
the results to match. Yeah.
So I think, Kris, you bring up a really good point of, I can't remember the statistics, like every 15 years, the S&P 500, like 92% of those companies aren't in the S&P 500, right? Like, it's just crazy the amount of companies that actually stay in their down. Like 15, 20 years ago, Sears was a monster beast of a stock and company, right? You look at GE, you look at all these different oil companies. So innovation, it happens. Like, it's not going to be denied. And I like also what both of you said about the fire that Palantir has, that they want to get to that point, right? And I think Ryan made comments here in the comments of Apple, Microsoft, Google. They're happy with where they're at. They'll buy someone to keep their growth going. But when you look at the market cap size compared to Google, as long as they keep doing what they need to do for Palantir, I don't see them not having better returns than Google with when you look at the market cap comparison and the growth trajectories. So maybe we could switch it up here around Netflix. You bring up
about that,
I'll let you guys start, and then I'll put my 2 cents on Netflix and what we've seen, in my opinion, overreaction.
You think I don't think it's overreaction. I don't think so.
22% value drop in one day is not an overreaction.
I have a little bit of a bias here, Kris. Kris, why do you think this happened? Do you agree with Dom or?
I would say this to you guys. Netflix disrupted Blockbuster, killed Blockbuster, because that was yesterday's thing. Now it's come to a point where there's so many options with regards to Netflix, right? There's HBO Max, there's Disney, there's blah, blah, blah. Remember what I said about losing your innovative edge? What innovative edge has Netflix had in the last 5 years? Other than buying content, right? That's all they do. They buy content.
They lose money doing that. There's no innovation.
Hold on. I'm not. Let's make sure my statement's clear. Is that I'm not saying that they're not innovative or that they're that there's more players to be gained. There's not a huge differentiation. The statement was 22% of a company that big dropping in one day is an overreaction. I don't think them losing that much in one day when they had a decent earnings report. Let me ask you this. If they pull off gaming, what happens with that stock? If they pull off and redefine gaming and buy out a company that makes the most interactive approach of streaming gaming.
Here's my take real quick. Netflix needs to grow because it's a growth company. And from what I understand, there's 800 million households worldwide that still don't have Netflix. That's a pretty good market to get into. But to Chris's point, they've got a lot of other options. And for Netflix to even get a sliver of those markets, they need content that's contextual to those markets, because it's not America anymore, which means the R&D, you could say, of how much content they need to create is substantial. So to your point, Don, you're like, okay, well, gaming, right? Well, gaming's fine, but on the earnings call, there's not really a plan for how Netflix becomes a platform with gaming. I think merch could work. I think Stranger Things should be an entire merch store. Squid Game should be an entire merch store. I have never seen Netflix pop up an ad for merch as I'm scrolling through Netflix where I could buy it right then and there when they already have my credit card on file. I mean, that's the easiest thing in the world. What person did not think of that at Netflix to just pop in some merch from the Netflix merch store when you already have someone's credit card on file? You got the sale. You just need to put it in front of their face, and a lot of people would have bought it. Netflix didn't do that. And there's a bunch, and give me 1 second. And there's a bunch of other verticals. There should be a Netflix theme park, just like there's a Disney theme park with all the intellectual property they've created that they could sell tickets to. I mean, when you talk about innovation, they've done nothing other than buy content. So I don't think maybe it's a little bit overreaction, but
That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. I'm not a Netflix even shareholder. All I'm saying is a company of that size dropping in 22% when nothing fundamentally changed from the company. Like that's
what did change is the growth outlook. That's why I think the 22% is not crazy. There is no more growth other than getting more people to subscribe. And it's like, if there's all this competition and there's really no avenue, why like $700 to $1,000 in the next 5 years sounds crazy to me if you're just buying content. And that's why I think investors were like, screw this.
The other problem with Netflix is that now they're starting to hit a point where they need to grow their revenue, so they're also starting to charge more. And dude, I got Netflix. I don't want cable anymore, dude. If I'm just buying Netflix to be another, I don't want to do that. I don't want to keep paying more and more and more. So guess what? I'm not gonna have them. So
I mean, I guess I gotta submit to you guys because I'm not a Netflix shareholder, and so I can just tell you that I don't invest them for the exact points you said. Is that they have to buy that content. They have to like what's the edge? They have great content, right?
No, they don't. No, they don't. The content's not good either.
It's been starting to go down.
The content's not good for a bit, but
name me 5 good shows they have right now.
Yeah.
5 good shows. Well, that's gonna be my personal preference. May not be what everyone likes.
No, but like for a growing tech company, it has to be objective because HBO, you could say Friends, you could say The Office. Everyone in the world likes that. Netflix, what do they got? What does everyone in the world like on Netflix? YouTube, YouTube, you can easily say everyone in the world likes YouTube because YouTube has search-based recommendations. So they literally have everything in the world that someone likes. I don't know what Netflix has.
And YouTube is not paying a lot of money for content creation. Right now, we're providing content.
Yeah, we're giving them the content.
There's people right now watching us that are not watching Netflix, and they're doing it for free, right?
And what they gotta do 15 seconds of the ad that Dom's gonna get 55% of the ad revenue. I mean,
like, that's a whole nother conversation we need to talk about how I can make more on this channel because it ain't.
But that's the thing. It's like I've never liked this idea. It's why I'm not bullish on Spotify because $10 a month you got the world's music and then 99% of that goes to the record labels. So they're trying to get into the podcast world. It's like. So you're going to buy premium podcasts and try to sell ads against that, and you think that's going to skip? Like, I would dump Spotify right now. I really am not bullish on these B2C consumer subscription platforms that are built upon premium content. Because here's the kicker. Here's the main point. Content is a commodity. Content dies in a day. I was listening to a podcast the other day that said the reason Netflix bought the Don't Look Up movie with Leonardo DiCaprio and like 17,000.
Hey, that was a good movie though. I'm not gonna lie.
The reason they did it is because if they give you a show, people binge it in like 10 hours. So they spent like $50 million on a show. The show is gone in 10 hours. If they get a movie, they at least get some earned media around the movie because if Leonardo DiCaprio's in your movie, it has a bigger shelf life. So like their business model now has to shift to making these mega blockbuster movies, which are going to be really expensive because the shows die out in a day and then people go to HBO Max because there's no more content on Netflix once the show is done. I really don't see the potential in this company at all. I don't see.
I mean, I don't think
I'm not a shareholder, so I can't speak. I guess I have to say I lost the debate because you've won me over with your business points because I don't know. So like the only reason that I sold my Disney. I don't own Disney anymore.
When'd you sell?
Oh, I sold when it was like I don't know 9 months ago. I put it in Palantir. I'd rather have it in Palantir. So
you were not goofy for that sell.
Yeah. So with Disney, the thing that's intriguing to me is that they have such a moat when it comes to the content and the culture, right? The Disney culture has transcended through decades, right? My only bull case for them is if they can somehow figure out how to really figure out this metaverse play and be a part of the metaverse and gaming. If they can figure out how to take their culture and what they have and get that into gaming and metaverse, it becomes a much higher growth company for me opposed to a streaming and parks company. But I just don't want to wait around or bet on that. Dude, I'd rather go and bet on NVIDIA or someone else.
I think NVIDIA is going to lock it down with regards to the Omniverse, the Metaverse, whatever you want to call it. Because
go ahead. No, No, I was
gonna
ask
say,
you, I was gonna transition, and you could keep talking about NVIDIA. Is the metaverse going to be a thing? I wanted to get to know your
yeah,
thoughts.
oh yeah, for sure. I think it's going to be a thing because we are trying to operationalize transform human contact. Right now, that's what we're going with. Right now, we are technically in the metaverse, if you think about it, because guess what? We're not physically in each other's rooms right now, right? We are on a screen, right? The only difference is there a way to take what we're doing right now as an interaction and turn it into something where, let's say, you can walk into a room and Dom is sitting on one side, I'm sitting on another side, and Amit's sitting on another side, right? How cool would that be, right? That's amazing.
How cool would that be, though?
I think that would be amazing. But here's the part
how cool
that I think would
that really like.
But here's the part that I think would be even cooler. Imagine you as an audience member get to sit right there, right next to us, right? And when you ask a question, you're literally facing Dom and you're asking him a question. You're facing me, you're asking me a question. All the mannerisms that come with that, you're literally right there in the room with us, that physical presence with us.
When they get to the hologram stage, I think that's cool. You know, when it's like, what's that Amazon Prime movie where they're all like in heaven or whatever, like an alternate universe, and it's like I can't think of the name of it, but if it's like a movie,
it's the movie. I know what you're talking about.
I'll be right back.
Player One, Ready Player One.
But regardless, I'm a believer in the metaverse from an enterprise standpoint. I could care less about the social interact. I'm sure that somehow it'll become a thing, but more my bull case is on the Omniverse, which that's NVIDIA's version of it, but I'm sure there's going to be others that have their business version. The ability to collaborate in real-time projects and 3D worlds and develop movies, gaming, content, code, whatever, across the world. Upload. There you go. That Randy had it. The Amazon show was called Upload. Yep. So I think that there's a value to be said around, and it goes back to our first point when we started this thing an hour and 30 minutes ago, was time to value. At the end of the day, what are you trying to get as a business? You're trying to get time to value to be able to produce a product that people want to use and experience. I think the enterprise version of the metaverse does that, right?
Well, I think you just hit it right there, which is experience, right? People right now, we're becoming a society where we value experiences more than we value like physical object things, right? So an example is today, me and my wife were sitting down, we were watching this this documentary called, I forgot what it was called, but it was basically like about Africa and all this stuff. Like Will Smith is like, I think it's called.
Oh yeah. I haven't seen it, but it's on Disney Plus or something.
And it's really cool, right? How cool would it be to actually be right next to Will Smith going on safari, right? Physically, you literally, when you look around, you see the crocodiles, you see the wildebeest, that physical experience. But once we're still not there from a technology standpoint. We still have to put on these giant clunky, HMDs on top. I think as technology improves, we get faster connections. We get those things become smaller and smaller. I think we're going to hit a point in the next 5 years where that becomes normal.
Like I don't know the timeline, but when that becomes normal and it becomes just so futuristic and it feels real, I think even Amit would agree with that. That seems appealing, right? Right now, I don't think we're there. And I just hope we never miss the human interaction, man. Like, how cool it would be just for us to go out and have some beers. I'm in Nashville. I don't know. I think one of you guys are in Jersey. Like, you can't replace real human interaction. You can get close. But I mean, I hope we never get.
Well, I don't think it's going to replace it. It'll just augment it so that we don't have to like I said, I don't mind grabbing a beer with you, Dom. But guess what? If we can't do it in the real
I ain't hopping on a plane to Jersey.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe we could go to a digital bar, with a drink, and we could grab a drink, right? So
Blake said we'll also get fatter. I agree, bro. I'm work from home now, man. I've had to work out.
Here's the big problem. I agree with everything you're saying. The one thing I can't get over, and maybe time will fix this, is the convenience element of the access to the metaverse. So like this right here is really easy. I mean, I'm on my laptop right now, but I could just be on my phone and I could access this conversation. this idea of wearing a headset or glasses, and Facebook's very blatant that they're going to make this AI glass thing work. Like, that's the part that I can't get into, because like, am I really going to be on my glasses when I'm on the train checking my Instagram updates in front of my eyes, or on a device? And that's the hard part, because the experience you're going to go get a beer at a digital bar, I can't do that when I'm on the subway. I have to be at home, just like I'm at right now, 11 o'clock at night, and put on the headset and be prepared to enter that experience, which I can get. But for the day-to-day stuff, the metaverse, for it to truly get to the enterprise trillions of dollars of values, to me, has to replace the phone. Like, it kind of just happens.
Well, here's the thing. I would say that it'll just add to it. Like, an example is right now, everyone has a computer, right? We can all talk to each other via a computer, but then the phone came along and now everyone can use the phone. That doesn't mean I'm getting rid of my computer, right? So I think, like you said, when you're at home, you won't mind putting on the metaverse helmet, whatever, or glasses or whatever. But that's the thing. You're still probably going to need something like a phone. And maybe that's what the key is, that your phone syncs up as a connection to the glass itself, so that most of the processing is done on the phone and all you're doing is visualizing it. So like I said, I think we're at a point where this technology is going to come along, and I want to be early in it rather than later. And I think right now NVIDIA can provide that technology. I'd say NVIDIA. NVIDIA is my metaverse play. Yeah.
What about
and
AMD?
The reason why?
What's up with that? Why aren't you guys bullish on AMD?
You want to go first?
I have two. I would say two things about it. AMD is really good too. Okay, I'm not saying that they're not. Lisa Su is a very dynamic leader. She's really good at what she does. But it seems like they're always going to be a strong second to NVIDIA. They just don't. I don't know why, but they can't out-innovate NVIDIA. NVIDIA, especially on so many levels, just does things so much better. Maybe Dom, you have something else to add to that? I just see NVIDIA being more innovative than AMD.
So you hit the nail on the head with more innovative. I think NVIDIA is more of a software company than AMD is. If you look at where AMD's majority of their revenues still come from, it comes from PCs and their graphics cards. So if they don't get away from that and figure out how to be more in the software world with more high margins, I just always see them being a step behind. Not saying they can't change and get there. I'm going to hold my shares of Xilinx because I think they could be a real big play in the 5G movement, and I have a play there that NVIDIA doesn't step into. But from a overall innovative stage of how they impact society, if there's a company that's going to create robots and make life easier and everything else, for me, it's Tesla and NVIDIA. It's not AMD. It's not, Jensen Huang, I just think is on a whole nother level playing field.
Yeah.
Interesting, because AMD is cheaper, so I'm like, yeah, I'm trying to get some exposure.
Dude,
but
think of it this way: you have a cheerleader who's the prom queen, and you have some chick right there. Who are you gonna want to be with? Are you gonna want to be with the prom queen, or you want to be, I don't know, Miss Lumpy, right? You get what you pay for, basically. If I'm dating someone, I'm dating the best. So,
but what's the other growth story to NVIDIA besides the metaverse? Is it just the chips? That's like the big story.
No,
technology.
So for me, like, I believe they're going to redefine edge compute in the data center. Like, they've designed a DGX data center box that has everything you need to have a data center in one tower box, in a server box, right? They have the Mellanox acquisition, crushing, selling networking. They have now these DPU chips that have storage, compute, networking, and zero trust hardware security on the actual motherboard itself. So it even has security built in on the hardware. So I believe they are going to continue to OEM and license that to all the players like Dell, HP, all of those. They will be the data center play and the supercomputer quantum compute play, I believe, of our time, which we constantly need more compute. So I believe they will be the main provider of that compute.
Yeah.
I mean,
we're getting. Oh no, are we going back to this glitchiness, Chris?
I think that was the point of the rally.
And tell you, it's bandwidth. It's bandwidth.
It's not my bandwidth this time. It's Amit. He's
You're
You're
back
good
to
now?
normal.
Yeah, you're good
Yeah,
now.
yeah.
Yeah, I was thinking the rally NVIDIA had in like September and October, to me, was fueled off this metaverse thing. Like, that's why I keep honing in on that, because everything you said makes sense, Dom, but I'm like, I feel like
You
this
gotta
metaverse
watch
thing
their Hey, go back and watch my YouTube videos or the GTC conference itself. I still say today, in 5 to 10 years, they're a $2 trillion company at least. They are redefining compute, edge compute. They also have 17 manufacturers that they have their NVIDIA Drive AI session software for autonomous driving. So it will be Tesla and NVIDIA for autonomous driving. There are so many. My two top biggest holdings are Palantir and then NVIDIA. Like, that's, if I had to roll with two, that's who I'm rolling with.
Does Tesla use NVIDIA chips? I'm pretty sure they do, right?
Not anymore.
Yeah,
not anymore.
Okay.
Tesla uses their own, but Jensen and Elon were buddies, and then Tesla said, you know what, we can do it ourselves, and so Tesla does their own thing now.
Let me ask you guys a question about Palantir. I'm doing a video on this tomorrow. I don't know if you guys saw the Dave Lee, Tom Nash podcast on and they talked about Palantir. He asked a really good question that I haven't thought of in a long time, and that's why Dave is such a good interviewer, because he asked these hard questions. Yeah. His argument was, so you guys know what AIG is, right?
Yeah, the insurance company.
AGI, Advanced General Intelligence, Artificial General Intelligence. So essentially, Tesla is a data company, and they own the data, right? Yeah. And there's some other companies. Google's a data company; they own the data. Like they act quite literally; it's in their database.
Yep.
David said Palantir is referred to as like a data analytics company, but in 10 years, presumably right now, or the next 5 years, they don't own any of the data. They go into an organization and help them manage the data.
Correct.
So his argument was like, would you rather allocate your money to a company like Tesla that actually can use their artificial intelligence to make a robot that could like change the entire world because they literally own the data? The cars have the cameras that are collecting the data, or invest in a company that like analyzes the data? It's like, what's the better data play, and why would we invest in a company that doesn't actually own any of the data?
So 2 points to that. One, do people want to give that data up anymore? Not really. Like, I think we live in a world where people want to protect their data, or at least sell it. Like, I saw someone in the comments put me Prism is the consumer, business to consumer product for Palantir. I actually did sign up for Me Prism. It's one of their SPAC plays, and I just got my first, I didn't even check the email yet, but someone wants to buy my data, which, hey, if I'm going to get paid for it, cool. I mean, I have
hey, Dom, just letting you know, I just saw this because someone put it in the comment section. AMD is in Tesla now. I don't know if you know that. Yeah, Tesla cars have AMD.
Yeah.
So maybe I need to take a second look at AMD, bro.
Fair enough. I'm still holding the NVIDIA, but I do have AMD shares once the Xilinx thing goes through, because I like Xilinx.
And here's the thing. I think a lot of people, you don't need to necessarily just buy one. Like, there's no, if I just buy just buy NVIDIA, that's it. Like, I can't buy AMD. Bro, buy both. Buy number 1 and 2.
It's like, for me, when people say C Limited or Mercado Libre, bro, I have both. I have so much of both. And then I have Shopify as well. Like, that's the e-commerce trinity right there. And then you can put Etsy in there too. Well, we got let's just do 15 more minutes and we'll wrap up.
What's the answer to the question? Why should we invest in a company that doesn't own any?
Sorry. So I believe that they can make use of that data better than any other company in the world. Tesla's the only one that could rival them, possibly. We don't even know if they can from an AI perspective in all aspects, right? Like, Palantir is the refinery of taking structured and unstructured data and allowing anybody to use that data with no code or low code, right? Now, I own both. They're both in my top 10 positions. Palantir is my number 1. Tesla's my number 6. But other than Tesla, who else do you think is a data company that you want? Like, I don't care if I own the data. Like, I want people that are going to make the data usable, functionable. Right. Like, give me, data is only as good as you use it.
Hey, right. Dom, give me your social security number. I'll give you $20.
That's
We should
funny.
put a price on it. But yeah, that makes sense to me because data is only as good as if you're able to use it. I think then the only retort to that is like, okay, well, then if another company comes that's like cheaper that can also do the data analytics, then big clients will just go with that. But that rests on the belief that that company is cheaper and better. And like that's the part I think all three of us are like, there's just no way that's gonna happen.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if someone really basically is able to disprove that that Palantir is not 10x better in the market of what they do, there's a problem. Like, if someone can do it cheaper and almost as effective, then we're in trouble. But I think that they have a real, true competitive moat for a while.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
So we want to talk about any other stocks? We got 15 minutes to just Unity. I see a lot of Unity stuff out there. Are you guys shareholders? I'm starting to build a position. I'm really intrigued.
Yeah, I have a very small position in Unity, but I'm starting to add to it too because I see what is the purpose of the metaverse? It's for experiences, right? So when it comes to experiences, who can do that? The technology behind that experience, and I think Unity can, right? So just like people were really amazed by Ready Player One. I know a lot of people in the video game community. I don't play as many video games as I used to, but when I used to play a lot of like StarCraft, and I don't know if you guys ever played real-time strategy, but there is a huge market for video games out there, and the gaming community is just constantly expanding out. And so as it expands out, that's a lot of consumers. They're always looking for new things, right? They're looking for new experiences. And I think Unity has the ability to capitalize on that by providing the tools necessary for developers to make more games, right? We all know video games is going to keep growing. It's not like the market for video games is not shrinking. If anything, it's going to expand. If the metaverse expands, I think gaming expands with it. So Unity is the perfect play for that.
So the reason I bring this up besides the comments is, to your point, I'm married. I have 2 kids. Haven't played video games in so long. Xbox One just collecting dust there. But my son is now getting into Marvel. He's starting to get into all this stuff. He's only 4 years old, but he's really intrigued with it all. So I got the Xbox Game Pass, the cloud gaming. And I played Injustice 2 this morning with him, and it was Dad Day. And we're just playing video games. It's Superman and all the different characters for DC Comics, and the graphics are just unreal. And like in story mode, it's like you're watching a movie. He was like, he said, is it movie or game? I was like, well, it's kind of both. Like playing in story mode, he was kind of confused because there's a lot of clips. But looking at how detailed it was, and now with the acquisition of Weta, in my mind, I was just thinking about, because this game was made with the Unreal Engine. And what I've noticed is with the Unreal Engine, it looks, just impeccable when you compare Unity games and Unreal, but Epic's a private company. But I think with the Weta acquisition, this could really help them obviously there can be 2 winners, but since Epic you can't invest in, I just think Unity is a big play, like you said, from mobile to gaming in general and experience.
Just look at Microsoft. They paid $70 billion for Activision. $70 billion.
Yeah.
If they're not thinking that how much return I'm going to get for this, they see that coming down. That says, you know what, this is a value generating proposition for me. So you know what, they spent it. They put $70 billion. That's crazy, dude. Crazy.
Yeah, if anything, that really makes me want to get my gaming stocks like way up there, because to your point, when Dell acquired EMC, that was the largest tech acquisition of all time, and I was at Dell when that happened. And now this will be the biggest one if this passes through. It's pretty monster to think about it, just to really think about investing in gaming to that level. Now, obviously, they have the money to do it, but
I think that's what Microsoft is doing, right? They've got Nuance acquisition now. Now they've got this publisher, right? If I'm thinking that there's maybe a metaverse play, maybe Microsoft is the metaverse play that we're all not looking at, because they're not putting it out there as that.
And they spent 10 years getting criticized by the government for antitrust, and now the government seems to have just
isn't it so funny? I'm just screaming like, if there's any company that's like the monopoly out there, they're just like just cruising. No one's even talking about them, and I'm like, dude, they own like everything.
I think it's also because like when you acquire a company, or when you, as a banker, when you sell a company, you have to go to every bidder. It's like your fiduciary commitment to make sure you got the best price you could. And I'm assuming they called Apple, they called Google, they called Facebook, and they hung up the phone because they were like, "There's no way Biden or the next administration is letting this happen." You know, not for them. But Microsoft, it was like, "Yeah,
let's try it. Let's go for it and see if it flies."
Yeah, Facebook could not do that. Facebook, I can't. They got Oculus, WhatsApp, Instagram, and I think they're gonna have to call it a day for the next 10 years. They better figure out how to do.
Everyone's watching them real closely.
There's nothing. I don't think they're getting anything else other than that.
Well, this has been fun, man. Any other stocks that you guys are excited about or looking? I mean, I know markets are probably going to continue to go down. So, is there anything you're adding to here in the next coming months?
I am not touching anything. I'm not touching anything. I'm like, bro, I need to see some market stability before I throw money into an open fire pit. You know,
because I was thinking of getting more Palantir, but I'm like, man, no. Like, I gotta wait now. I gotta wait.
Yeah, the thing is, like, I'm not saying I'm not gonna buy, but I need to see like a little bit of stability, right? I can't see the 5% down days because that throws my conviction off. And so now I need to just wait until like. And here's the best part about investing in down markets, right? When things go up, they don't just bounce back again. They take time to start coming back up slowly. So once we start to see that slow progression going up, dollar cost average up too, you know, and this way you're not feeling like crap. So it's all emotion.
COVID is when we went down 25% in March 18th, within like 2 weeks, it almost got erased. And that's the thing I think most people are scared of. Now, obviously the Fed pumped money, blah, 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 but like the last crash we had was gone very quickly. And a lot of people either made money in that bull market or they sold at the bottom and they missed out. So it's like, what's going to happen this time? I don't know.
Yeah. So there's a lot of different people putting their stocks in on what they're going to be buying. So we have some Tesla, we have some Roku, we have Teladoc, AMD. So I like all those. I mean, all those are all been beaten up, right?
My favorite one so far is ConAgra Foods.
I don't even know what that is, bro. I just skipped over it.
Dude, ConAgra makes like literally they take from farmers and stuff like that. They take all their grains, they take everything, and then they kind of sell that raw stuff to like, you know, like Doritos, right? So when you think about the corn to make a Doritos chip, right? Where does Doritos, the company, get the corn? Well, they don't go to every farmer and says, "Let me get your corn." They go to ConAgra Foods and they get all that stuff together, and then they, you know, sell it upstream. So it's fun. If inflation is going up, ConAgra Foods is probably going to go up too, right?
It could be. I mean, I'm so heavy weighted in Palantir that I'll have to do. For me, I'll probably DCA with Unity and Tesla, just because I want those up there in my top 5. So,
what are your guys' averages in Palantir? I'm at 22.89.
Oh, I don't even know what my cost base is. I just know it's like 15% of my portfolio, so it's a lot.
I'm at like 22, 23, so I'm right there with you.
I'm in the 20s. I know that. I'm not below 20. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, I'm trying to get to $20 even and call it a day. But I'm just like, I don't trust it right now, man. I don't trust it right now. Yeah, I've got a biotech that got hammered the other day as well.
Which one?
It's called Purple Biotech. They're in Israel. So I don't even want to talk about it because I know it because I'm deep in it for 2 years, but I'll sound like
yeah. I got you.
They're gonna solve cancer.
Hey, people beat me up about SEMA4. It's like at $3.40. But I didn't sell a share. I'm still holding. I'm
holding. I'm like adding biotech. Let's see in 2 years if they actually solve cancer.
Yeah.
Dude, I just being straight with you guys, I fucking hate biotech. It's like one of those things that biotech is like a casino. And the reason why I say this is because I've lost money at that casino, right? I used to have Valiant Pharmaceuticals. And dude, you trust me, when it was going up, it was great. They had a completely new business model. And when things just started, I rode that ship into the ground, bro. So ever since then, I'm like, nah, I'm going to stay out of biotech.
I bought this 2 months later. They hit me with a reverse split. That was my introduction to the market. That was I was like, oh, I had 10,000. Now I have 1,000. It's just like, oh, wow.
Yeah. So for these last 5 minutes here, I think we just tell everyone, do your own diligence, right? Do your own homework. Yeah. I think we all love, talking about stocks, and we have our YouTube channels, our podcasts, and Twitter. It's because we want to help people realize that this is one of the few ways you can make generational wealth and not be an expert in this field, but just have the tools to follow the right investing strategies and dollar cost average and continue to be consistent. I think consistency is important in investing. You look at all the different drops we've had in the market. At the end of the day, we know that his history says up and to the right as long as you can hold through it. But if you need that money critically for anything important for the next 3 to 5 years, you don't want to be in stocks. Like, you know what I mean? Like, if you need that money and you can't pay your mortgage or you can't feed your kids, don't be in stocks. Like, get your financial situation straight in personal finance, so that way then you can. But if you have extra money, then that's the first place to invest in.
Someone said ARC-G in the chat. Look, I don't know what Kathy's doing with ARC-G. She's buying the crap out of DNA, and it seems like it's an innovative company. I don't know. So I don't know, man. Kathy, because I don't like crypto that much, and she keeps buying Coinbase, and Coinbase is going to tank on Monday.
You missed the Coinbase call. We were talking. I own Coinbase.
You have Coinbase?
We can talk about that one for the next time for sure. We'll definitely have to do this again. And you see, I see there's ABCL to 5. Who knows? Palantir could go to 5, but I'm still holding. I'll just buy more. At that point, I'll take a mortgage out or something. All right, guys.
You just said don't buy anything using your mortgage payment, so you're trying to add more. Look at that.
Dom's like, I got a secret savings that no one knows about. And you know what that secret savings is? It's his dad's portfolio. All right. I'm out.
I'm out. I'll see you guys.